Hey, we had a great time last night at the Hot Shots in South County, the brand new Hot Shots, which has great food and drink and ambiance. That's Brooke. I'm Randy. And we were there for the kickoff party for our new site here, Sports Hub STL. Mm-hmm. Thank you for joining us here on the Randy Carricker Show. TGIF. Brooke, how you doing?
I'm doing great because it's Friday. It's beautiful outside.
It is tremendous.
It is like 70 degrees. I know it's going to get a little bit colder the rest of the weekend, but it is beautiful today. So I'm thinking about how I'm going to take Stevie, my dog, out on a walk after this.
Stevie deserves a nice walk.
She's been enjoying it this week.
Yeah,
I've taken her on a walk like every single day.
Good for Stevie Nicks.
Yeah, she deserves it. And she had a bath yesterday. So it's a good start to the weekend for us.
On a roll here.
I know.
We have Josh Schertz coming up later in the show, the head coach at St. Louis University, head basketball coach. He and his team. He's not going to be on the court. Well, he will be on the court, but he's not going to be playing. But SLU takes on Loyola of Chicago tomorrow. Billikens have already gone up there and lost. They need to win this game. So we'll talk to Schertzy about that. I wonder if he's okay with me calling him Schertzy.
You can ask him that.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Yeah, he likes to play tennis.
Yep.
He likes to play pickleball.
We've asked people about nicknames in the past. Some are accepted well, some are not.
Some go over well. Some not so much.
Yeah. Right. We're also going to talk to Eric Sontag about gambling. He's coming up at noon with his gambling program. And so we got a lot coming your way. And the Cardinals play this afternoon. Mm-hmm. They'll take on Houston. And after that game, of course, we have Cards Hub 365, and the Cardinals finally exploded offensively yesterday, Brooke.
They listened to the show because we were talking about that. That was literally the title of the show yesterday, was the Cardinals offense being stale, because they were like hitting 173?
173 is where they were.
Rough. And then finally they listened to the show like you guys are right now, and they said, we got to come through, especially Nolan Arenado, who hit that 3-run homer.
Yeah, 3-run homer. Victor Scott got on base a couple of times, stole a couple of bases. Mm-hmm. I hope that he gets a green light, or at least gets sent a lot. One of the things that Ollie Marmol and I don't agree on is the stolen base. Ollie is not a big stolen base guy. He
says it's situational. He says that he does want to do it more, but sometimes it's more situational.
And
with
I think every situation calls for a stolen base.
Yeah.
But my favorite team stole 314 bases in a season, the 1985 Cardinals. I think that if you have athletes and they get on base, with the way teams are set up, Cardinals aren't the only guy that has a catcher that doesn't throw many people out. A lot of teams have catchers that don't throw many people out. And you need to take advantage. When we talk about analytics, one of the hallmarks of analytics is you have to take advantage of other teams' inefficiencies. And a lot of teams don't set up, because we've gone such a long time with the 3 true outcomes. Either you strike out, or you walk, or you hit a home run. Mm-hmm. And nobody's stealing bases, so nobody's set up to defend stolen bases. So when you have a Victor Scott, whenever he gets on base, he's going to have a really good opportunity to steal that base. Maybe not against Philadelphia with their catching situation with Real Muto, but most teams won't be able to throw a guy like Victor Scott out.
And Victor Scott II is not the only one on this team. I mean, Mason Wynn has a lot of speed. I mean, think about it. A lot of people were talking about last season, Elly De La Cruz, very exciting within your division with the Reds, how many stolen bases he had. I just think that Mason Wynn could do the exact same thing. And especially if Victor Scott II is here eventually, probably, who knows what could happen. He could be on the opening day roster, but as of right now, no. But eventually when he's with the team this season, you have those two guys, they're very speedy. And if they're saying their philosophy isn't any more of the home runs, and they're not swinging for the fences, and they don't care about exit velo, all that different kind of stuff, why not try to score in different ways and get the game going?
Exactly. Last year, Mason Wynn was on base 182 times, on second or first via a double or a hit or a walk, 182 times. Now, he hit the home runs. We're not counting the home runs or being at third. We aren't expecting him to steal home. Out of those 182 times that he was on first or second, how many times do you think he tried to steal?
Not many, because I think he finished with how many last season? 11, just 11.
He tried to steal 16 times out of 182 times on first or second last
And
year.
He wants to, so that has to be a philosophy from the Cardinals.
And I think there needs to be, one of the issues that I think organizationally they have, and I think this filters down from the top. I don't think this is an Ollie thing, because Ollie really likes Mason Wynn's swagger. Mm-hmm. But I think there needs to be some fearlessness, if not arrogance, on the part of the base runners. That was the great thing about Vince Coleman. He didn't care. If he gets thrown out, fine. He's going to steal on you the next time, and he's going to steal the base. Now, Should Vince Coleman be a part of the Cardinals staff in spring training? He should, because he understands, he learned it from Lou Brock, the science of stealing a base. People like Victor Scott, people like Mason Wynn, people like Lars Nootbaar, people like Brendan Donovan, they should be learning from a guy like Vince Coleman, or even a guy like Andy Van Slyke, who stole 34 bases in 1985, understands how to go about stealing base. Wasn't the fastest guy in the world, but is a good base runner and knows when to try to steal a base. And I think that's one of the things I think people go through life like this. I think they almost play out of fear rather than aggressiveness.
Exactly. So Ellipsis on the chat, make sure you get your comments and questions into the chat. Ellipsis says, whenever Elly De La Cruz gets on base, you know he's stealing second and third. And that's what I like. It's a threat. You can't take your eyes off of him. And for the pitchers, that gets them a little bit uncomfy when they're up there. And that's the kind of threat that you need to have with your team.
It's going to be even more pronounced in Cincinnati with Tito Francona as their manager. He loves to run. And what did Elly De La Cruz steal last year? In the 60s?
It was a lot. It was up there.
See, we're surprising ourselves here with the statistics. Brooke's going to get it. But I guarantee you he'll steal more in 2025 because of the manager they have and because of the aggressiveness that they will display in Cincinnati.
Well, and you talk about that flash. By the way, he stole 67 last year. 67 stolen bases for Elly De La Cruz. But even just that flashiness that they embrace, look at how it got him so much of attention. I think Mason Wynn could be that guy too for this team. I'm
with you 100%. So that's one of the things the Cardinals need to do offensively. That being said, yesterday, Nootbaar 1 for 3 with an RBI and a run. Contreras 2 for 2 with a run and an RBI. We mentioned Nolan Arenado's 3-run homer. Pages had a base hit, and the Cardinals put up 8 on the board. And even though they were only hitting 173 yesterday, they have scored a lot of runs. They just haven't come from the people that are going to be in the lineup on opening day. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, and there was another end of the spectrum yesterday down in Florida, you had not only an 0 for 3 performance by Nolan Gorman, but it was 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts.
Yeah, I was going to ask you your concernometer for Nolan Gorman. Because now he's 0 of 9 for spring training with 5 strikeouts.
I would say, what's my scale here on my concernometer? 1 to 10?
Yeah, I would say 1 to 10.
I'm gonna put it at a 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's spring training, it's early.
Yeah,
we haven't had many games.
Tomorrow it'll be a week. Something happened on ESPN. Okay, I'll tell you a story about ESPN in a moment. Oh no, that's a Fox Sports.
Is it something about Matthew Stafford? Because that's all going around.
It's a
today.
2025 NBA mock draft.
Oh.
Okay. Before we get back to this,
they send notifications for that.
They do. I get all kinds of so okay, I'll tell you a story. So do you have the ESPN notification?
I do not turn on all my notifications for the apps, or I will be driven nuts.
So I have Fox and ESPN.
Okay.
And the ESPN one is One night I'm sleeping, and I get an ESPN notification like 2 a.m. 1:32 in the morning, and I literally think as I'm roused from my sleep and jump up, I'm thinking, Stan Kroenke died, and I run into my phone.
What? Why is that the first thing that you're thinking of? Were you dreaming about him, or having a nightmare? I should say, having a nightmare, not dreaming about him. Were you dreaming or having a nightmare about him, and then all of a sudden you hear that, and you're like, "Oh, he died."
Yeah, I may have been, or I just might have he might be living rent free in my head. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
So, but I run to my phone, and it was during the Australian Open, and it was like some Serena won at the Australian Open or something. Ruined my morning.
Randy, we're gonna get canceled if you're wishing for people's deaths.
No, we're in St. Louis. Okay, you're on the YouTube chat. You tell me you wouldn't be happy.
Oh, come on.
Oh, you're on the YouTube chat. Tell me.
You never want to wish death upon
I'm not wishing death. No, I'm just saying.
Just saying that you were really excited.
Okay,
I like how that was your first thought.
Anyway, that's what notifications do. All right, so
back to concernometer with Nolan Gorman. So why are you said that you're at a 4. So if you're just tuning in, we mentioned that Gorman, he struck out in all 3 of his at-bats yesterday. So he's now 0 for 9 through 5 spring training games. And he is also, well, no, it's not 5. How many spring training games are we at?
They've played 6 now.
Oh, 6. Yeah. And he has 5 strikeouts. Your concernometer is just a 4, 1 through 10. Why is that?
Because he's got plenty of time to fix it. And he did work hard during the offseason. And maybe he's just worked so hard. He's worked himself into
worked with Brant Brown
all the time. And it could be that he is just kind of worn out a little bit. And he just needs to get his bat on the ball. I'm sure that he's feeling the pressure after striking out as much as he did last year and having the bad year. And now he's probably feeling the pressure. You start off 0 for 6, now you're 0 for 9. And maybe that is leading to it. He just needs to take a deep breath, decompress, and he'll get his bat on the ball. He doesn't need to swing hard. He just needs to get his bat on the ball.
You talked about McGuire and how he talked about that you just need to leave your thoughts when you arrive at the ballpark for game day. Is there somebody that you think within the organization? I'm not saying that they don't have people who are talking to him now, but we talked about simplifying things yesterday, and we hear from those young players where maybe it's just a little bit too much. You have your family weighing in, you have your hitting coach, you have your other hitting coach, you have, all these people telling you different things they want you to do. Who do you think would be like a good person to just help him simplify that?
I think it would be Brant Brown. And one of the things about Gorman is that he does have a personal hitting coach. I don't know if he utilized his personal hitting coach during the offseason because it sounded like he spent a lot of time with Brant Brown. But I would say that what they need to do is to simplify things by having him have one voice, and the voice that they trust is the guy that they hired as their hitting coach.
Yeah.
So I would say have him be the guy, and you got to be as much psychologist as you do hitting coach at this point with a guy like that, and just tell him to relax.
Ray has a question here. He says, is there a scenario where Gorman does not make the opening day roster? Perhaps he's terrible in spring training and someone like Baker is doing well.
He still has options. I could absolutely see something like that happening. If it's a disastrous spring training for a guy like Gorman and Arenado's.
So let's just say he just does not, he just continues to strike out the rest of the.
Okay. So if he goes 2 for 58, 3 for 58, you start the season with Arenado at third, Wynn at short, Donovan at second, Contreras at first. You know who your catchers are. Newt Bar, either Ciani or Scott, and Walker with Burleson as the DH. And then you send Gorman down to Memphis and you have him play third base every day and see if another voice can get him to start striking out less.
And you can continue to send in some questions to the chat. So we have another one from Ellipsis says, my worry meter is high for Gorman because I feel after the down season he had last year, he's going to be pigeonholed into only facing lefties again. That's an interesting point there.
I kind of think, and he would only face righties, he's a left-handed hitter.
Yeah.
But I kind of think that rather than doing that, because the Cardinals have not only expectations of him becoming a good ball player, but they have expectations of him becoming an impact hitter.
Because, I mean, left-handed power bats, like with your whole point with him being a lefty, he's a left-handed power bat. Those guys don't just grow on trees.
Right. And so I would think that the Cardinals would want to go as far down the line with him as possible to try to get him to be a really good hitter. You remember a couple of years ago when Dylan Cease was available, and I think it was Jesse Rogers from ESPN told us, I think the White Sox would go for Gorman and Graceffo for Dylan Cease.
Yes.
So, and a lot of people said, no, you don't trade Nolan Gorman. Don't trade Nolan Gorman.
I think that's the reason why it has to work out. I think it would be a big issue if he started out in the minors. That's just my opinion, because he needs to be a part of the plan.
That'd be the story of spring training.
It would.
If Nolan Gorman's in the minors and Nolan Arenado's at third for the Cardinals, that would be the story.
Because you got to have it work out with him. Also, as of note today, before we get into some Blues talk, Donovan is at second. So I know that we're paying attention to every little thing because we're talking about Nolan Arenado and those trade rumors just surrounding him. And so we look at every single move. I mean, I literally Foul Territory did a whole story, a whole episode on basically him doing a showcase when he traveled 3 hours to play against the Yankees. So every little thing everybody's paying attention to. And Donovan's at second today. We kind of addressed this yesterday. Don't you think that that's just more of in case he does get moved soon or eventually, because we think it's eventually going to happen, of course, that this is just more preparation for these guys to get reps in that situation of him leaving, because then you would have Gorman at third, you'd have Donovan at second. So you got to get these guys reps at 100%. Those positions.
I am of the opinion, and I might not be right. And Joe, you were down. Joe Roderick is in for Matthew. You were down at spring training. Tell me if I'm wrong. I think the best Cardinal defensive second baseman is Brendan Donovan. I think the best Cardinal
Mhm.
defense up the middle is Donovan on the infield, is Donovan and Wynn.
I would say I think the Cardinals would agree with that because when you look at Donovan too, they trust him to play everywhere. I think they're really high on his defensive ability. I mean, he was a utility Gold Glover until they got into arbitration and then said that he doesn't have a set position.
He's just a utility player. That's a little bit behind the scenes, but yeah, that's interesting because we've talked about arbitration with those players, and then for Donovan, I think he's so valuable, obviously on the field, but off the field, and he's a great utility player. But I think you're right, Joe and Randy too. I mean, him at second, I think is their best option defensively.
I do also think they really like the progress that Gorman has made as a second baseman since the day that they moved him there. I think he worked a lot with Oquendo and still does down there with doing that. And I think they're really impressed with how he has learned. I mean, because that's when you think about it, think of the movement at third base, think of the plays that you have to make, the routine plays you make at third base, and how different that is with having to turn your body and having to learn how to turn a double play at second base. And Gorman was a lifetime third baseman. I mean, a lifetime. He was what, 20 when
Right, yeah.
his entire life.
But when he had to make that transition and he did it, I mean, I think he knew immediately the second that Arenado was traded in the Cardinals organization. I think he looked at that and was like, well, I'm not a third baseman anymore for this team. So he went and he worked his ass off to become a really good second baseman. And I don't think there was any time in the last year or two that you looked at Nolan Gorman at second base and you thought that's a liability.
Right. Yeah. If he could be league average, which is what they were hoping for when he started out there, they would be okay with it. But you're above average. He was a pretty good third baseman in the minors. You're above average on your infield at third and at second if Gorman is at third and Donovan is at second.
Exactly. So I hopefully it's not going to be a big issue with Gorman, and we're talking about his struggles at the plate right now. You're right. It's spring training. We can't freak out just yet because remember in the past, the Cardinals were spring training champs, and then what happened the rest of the season recently?
Mama checks in on the YouTube chat and asks, is playing second harder on your back than playing third? I would think it is.
Yeah.
But how long really, would you have to deal with that?
No, I'm not walking into
About
this,
a week
Randy.
back?
No, Matthew's not even here. Joe can't participate in this
Yes,
shenanigans. He can't. Now we're going to move on to blues because
hold on. We just need people
I'm trying to segue out of that.
Nam in the Lou says, good first thought of the day, Randy. Thank you, Nam in the Lou. And Landon Jackson said he'd be thrilled. So I am happy about that.
Yes, in reference to your Stan Kroenke dying dream that you was hoping coming to fruition. It's just a dream. One day it will be true.
I've learned better that it's not going to wind up being a notification on ESPN on the app either.
One last thought quickly on spring training, because you were talking about possibly being the champs of spring training. White Sox won their first spring training game yesterday. So
nice.
They were the last team that had a win in spring training. So probably doesn't bode well for what the 25 season looks like.
Pretty tough.
Oh,
that's one that I think you look at and you say that's a team that needs to rack up as many spring training wins as possible.
That is rough. So last night, the Blues, we have to talk about the Blues before we get to this interview with Josh Schertz. Another big win over the Caps. If you're watching that one 5-2, we had that live post-game show at Hot Shot, so we were able to watch the game too with everyone. And the Blues finally winning 3 in a row. There was a lot of positives from that game, right?
Last team in the league to win 3 in a row this year.
That for some reason I knew that, and then when I realized it again last night, I was like, wow, they really haven't won 3 games in a row at all this season. They also beat the Cavs, which is the best team in the Eastern Conference. There was just a lot of positives to take away from us because now they're kind of on a roll here, just days away really from the trade deadline.
And they only had one game and granted we had the Four Nations face-off, but one game of the 8 that they played in February where they didn't pick up at least a point. They went 5-1-2 in February, and they're only 3 points out of a playoff spot now.
Yeah.
And this is a huge part of the schedule. You've got the Kings coming up a couple of times, including tomorrow night at Enterprise Center. But all of a sudden I'm feeling pretty good about the Blues. I would not make a change. And I said it yesterday, and I stand by this. I believe that if Doug Armstrong is going to make a move, they'd have to lose the rest of their games before next Friday, and they would sell. I don't think they'll buy because they don't have assets and we talked about this with Jeremy Rutherford, they don't have a second, third, or fourth round draft choice this year because they gave them up for Broberg and Holloway, the second and third, and they made the trade of a fourth. That it was one of the defensemen, might have been the Cam Fowler deal. But anyway, they don't have a second, third, and fourth this year. So there's part of the reason. But the other thing is historically, Doug Armstrong has rewarded teams that have played well around the deadline. And I think he would reward this group and say, okay, you've earned this opportunity to do this, boys, tonight. You were meant to be hockey players. I think that he would say that to them and allow them to go down the stretch as the group that they are.
I think so. Doug Armstrong always reveals at the end of the season just kind of his thought process on when he decided if this was a playoff team or not and how he makes those moves. But the way that the guys are playing recently, they know their backs are against the wall of if this group is going to be able to stay together or not. And I think that was a pretty big message that they've been sending here recently, especially when in those 3 games in a row. By the way, it was also the 1,000th career game for Braden Shen, their captain, who is a big part of these Blues rumors.
Yeah.
And we were discussing this last night when we were at Hot Shots, but I can't see Braden Shen moving exactly unless it was just a really sweet deal where he could possibly be with his brother Luke Shen in Toronto.
He's got the no trade.
Yes.
And I kind of think the Blues right now are in the mode of wanting to keep him too. I think that I think both sides want to be together. And one thing Armstrong would do is before he would even talk about a trade with Toronto, for example, with Braden Shen, and it may have already happened. I think he would go to Shen and say, hey, like he did last year with Sonny.
Yeah.
I think he would say, do you want to be here or do you want to go somewhere and try to win?
Mm-hmm.
And last year he did that with Sonny. Sonny was going to be a free agent. And Sonny said, no, I want to be here. I've got my ring. And so that's why they signed Sundqvist to the extension. I would guess that would be the way that Doug Armstrong treats Braden Shen also.
And Jordan Binnington, another one that we've seen with those trade rumors. I just can't see any of that happening at this point.
No, I'm with you. I just think that they probably think, and Army told us right before the season started, day before the season started, he said, I expect this team to make the playoffs. And I would guess that he still does after what's happened here over the course of the month of February.
Yeah, I think so. This group is just playing really well together. And you've seen Robert Thomas's performance. He talked about that over the weekend. It seems like maybe his ankle is not nagging him as much, but you're having a lot of guys just really step up. And it seems like they want to be able to stay together. So maybe that's something that's standing out to Doug Armstrong right now.
I would think that it's standing out to all of us, right?
It is.
So it's got to stand out to him.
Yeah. We had some questions earlier, just going back to the Cardinals for a little bit. It says, are you surprised that MLB Network has Willson Contreras listed as the 6th best first baseman in Major League Baseball, despite never having played first base before? Is that more about offensive numbers?
It's all about offense.
Yeah.
I am a little bit surprised, though, because I think if we go around to the other 29 teams, if you go look at the guys' resumes, I think you can find 10 guys that are at least historically better than Willson Contreras.
Yeah. I think it is more just about offensively and his performance there.
Right. But, you think about a guy like Hoskins in Milwaukee. I don't think you put Michael Busch there from the Cubs, but let's just look in our division. Cubs, probably not at this point. Pirates, no. Reds, no. Dodgers, yes. Padres, is it a rise? I guess. Giants, who's the Giants first baseman now?
That's a good question.
You
need your son to weigh in on this one.
I think it's Lamont Wade.
6th though for Contreras, honestly it seems low because I think if you would have looked at it last year, offensively, if you would have taken his offensive numbers as a first baseman, I think he was like 4th. Or would have been around 4th in all of baseball. The idea is that his offensive numbers are going to improve, not having to catch. So I would think that he should be in the top 5 because as you're going around baseball, kind of listing guys, I don't know if there's that. I think that's Bryce Harper, Freddie Freeman. Who else do you think would be putting up better offensive numbers than Pete Alonso?
Yeah, I didn't see who they had ahead of Willson Contreras. So, Ellipsis, if you could weigh in and tell us what exactly they had him listed on there.
Here we go.
Or who else was up there?
So, right now, you've got Goldie at 10, Nathaniel Low. I think he's low. Nathaniel Lowe at 9, Alonso at 8, Christian Walker at 7, Contreras at 6, Yandy Diaz at 5, Vlad Jr. at 4, Matt Olson at 3, Harper at 2, and Freeman at 1. So I'm glad they look at his offense that way. I don't know that I necessarily would.
No, I'm just interested to see what it looks like this season. I think everybody is, with Wills Contreras at first and what he even looks like defensively. I'm not worried. Maybe this is just me, but I'm not worried about what he'll be able to do offensively. He always shows up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just more concerned about what it will look like defensively, just him getting used to first base.
Right. I don't think I mentioned Josh Naylor's name there. And he got traded to Arizona during the offseason. He hit 30 home runs last year. He's pretty good. But I think you can also legitimately have Contreras in your top 10.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad thing.
No. And we have Josh Schertz, correct? He's around the corner here. So, but first, we have to talk about Cards Hub 365.
And the Cards Hub 365 coming your way again today here on Sports Hub STL. And after the Cardinals take on Houston, we'll have an opportunity to find out about the game and about where the Cardinals are headed as the season gets underway. So you want to be right here at Sports Hub STL and join us for Cards Hub right here after every Cardinal game and every single day here on Sports Hub STL. It's going to be great, so you'll enjoy it. All right.
Me and Ryan Fagan today on the show.
Looking forward to that. Thank you, Joseph. All right, let's welcome into the conversation the head coach at St. Louis University, Josh Schertz. There's the coach. Morning, sir. How you doing?
Morning. How's it going?
Everything's going great here. Big game tomorrow for you against Loyola. I want to go back to the game at Loyola because, and I know you guys you're a coach, so you're always looking ahead. But I want to go back to that game because you're playing them tomorrow. What have you told your team as you look back at that game in preparation for tomorrow's game?
Well, I think there's a lot to be gleaned. We played so recently. Tomorrow to be 15 days from the game, so today's 2 weeks. When you play a team that recent, there's a lot to be taken away from it. Certainly, Loyola's playing great basketball. Won, I think, 5 or 6 straight. They're third in the league. We're fourth in the league right now. So it's a big game, and you want to be playing high-stakes games in March. But I think just trying to take the lessons, some tweaks we got to make to be a little bit better. We led that game with 4 minutes to play, played a really bad 2 minutes to go from up 3 to down 8, and finished that game, losing by 9, but had the lead for most of the first 36 minutes. So it's not an overhaul, but we got to make some adjustments, got to do some things better, and understand, what we got to do to try to get a win against an outstanding Loyola team tomorrow.
All right, Coach, the reason that I asked that question is because I was ticked because of what you just described there. Are you even keel? Are you able to maintain an even keel when something like when you have a 3-point lead and then all of a sudden you're down by 8?
Externally, yes. You have to, we talk a lot about, not riding the roller coaster and calm endurance. It's hard as a coach, but you gotta model what you want your players to do. If you don't want your players on that emotional roller coaster, it's way cooler as a fan because you really can ride the emotional roller coaster. I do with my teams, and you win, you're on top of the world. You lose, it's the worst. And we certainly played about as bad a 2 minutes as you could possibly play, and that was incredibly frustrating for players, coaches. And so you learn, but you got to be in this league. Going through it now this first time, you got to be really good in those moments of truth at the end of games, because most games come down to the final 3 or 4 minutes. In the A-10, you could pretty much fast forward the first 37 minutes, get to 3 minutes left, tie game, and who's going to win. So you got to be great in those moments. We've been for the most part, but certainly we're anything but against Loyola.
And that happened for you guys the other day, too, against Davidson. We were talking about that roller coaster with a nice payoff on the end. We have to talk about Robbie Avila's performance in that one. With under 5 seconds left, he is able to seal that win for you guys. Look, I know that obviously if you're playing at this level with college basketball, that you're a good player, but not every single player has that clutch gene. It seems like Robbie Avila has that clutch gene.
Absolutely. He's done it, time and time again for us. He's done it obviously that game, but many others where, you always think when he has a big shot, it's going to go down. And as you said, that's rare in players. The moment can be too big. Guys, He just has a great way of approaching things, super even keeled, moments never too big. And in that game, we were down 13 points with 6 minutes to go. And, that's a, remarkable comeback. A lot of things had to go right for us, and they did. And we got a little bit lucky, but getting the ball to Robbie there, final possession, the shot he made was remarkable degree of difficulty. And you just come to expect it, but you don't take it for granted because you realize how rare it is to have a guy that when you need him most, man, he produces. And that's very, very special.
Josh, I'm going to give you an amazing statistic here, and it's along these lines. LeBron James with the Lakers in tie or go-ahead situations in the final 5 seconds is 1 for 29.
No. Yeah, that's and it's look, to be as good as he has, he's obviously made a ton of clutch shots, but yeah, that's but certainly you look at situations like that. Again, not everybody has that ability. And I would bet Robbie, I remember last year in the NIT, we were trying to close, and he missed 2 really wide open threes to close the game to end it. And, not that, but you were shocked that he missed, because like I said, you just expect every time you need a big shot to close a game or to finish a game. He was 0 for whatever from 3. And he made a huge 3 when they went up 7 with a minute and a half left to put us within 4, and then obviously makes the game winner. So yeah, it's not everybody produces there at the end when it matters most.
Josh, we were talking to Rammer last night at our kickoff party for Sports Hub STL, and he said that we need to ask you about how analytics plays a role in your offense. So explain how you utilize analytics to benefit your club.
Well, I'm sorry you had to talk to Rammer, so I didn't know that. No, Rammer is awesome. Earl, those guys, we have the best. I don't know where we are in the basketball program rankings, but we're number 1 with those 2 guys calling our games. I know that. Analytics is a big part. I've always been, numbers oriented. I think the game, you want to be as efficient as possible. I mean, that just would make sense. You want to be as efficient as possible offensively, what you want to do offensively, you don't want to allow defensively. We certainly try to play in a way where we want to, get layups, get free throws, and generate, paint to great spot threes. We do leave wiggle room for, mastery shots or guys that can do things that aren't inside of those, boxes. And then defensively, you want to do everything you can to avoid, giving up those things. And we do think there's a mathematical component. We've not been great at it in terms of, generating more possessions. How many quality threes can you generate? How many layups can you generate? How often you get the free throw line? This team hasn't been, from a mathematical standpoint, perfect, but, we do lead the league, the A-10 in effective field goal offense and effective field goal defense. And that's why with some of the struggles we've had, we're still, competitive there and in the top 4 in the league here heading into these final 3 games.
What makes for effective field goal offense? Explain that to us.
Yeah, I think, you're looking at it. It just quantifies threes, gives them the point value they deserve. I think, what we always look at, is efficiency. I think field goal percentage can be misleading because, you're shooting 33% from 3. Well, that sounds terrible, but that's the same as shooting 50% from 2. And then, how often you get the free throw line, those type of things, those don't fall into effective field goal percentage. But what it does do is account for your 2-point percentage, your 3-point percentage. But what we really fixate on is efficiency levels on offense, points per possession, individual players, points per shot, your net rating offensively and defensively when you're on the floor. Things like that for us drive a lot of our decision making in terms of, how we want to play. And then some of it's constrained by, the team, the personnel, what you have. We had a team at Indiana State last year was probably about as good an example. We led the country in 2-point percentage, but we also led the country in made threes. But those actually go hand in hand if you think about it. So we shot, I think, 62% from 2, but we made 427 threes. And so the ability to do those 2 things, they do work in concert. And this year's team's different personnel-wise. They had to adapt to what we have. but certainly we want to build rosters in the future that allow us to play the way we want to play.
And when you lead the nation in 2-point field goal percentage, that means you're at the rim. It's not guys shooting 15 footers, right?
Yeah, I think, analytically, there's not a huge difference between non-paint 2s and 3s, other than it's a point per possession less. So everything we can do to avoid that, unless, there's time for it. Some guys really shoot mid-range well, and then there's scenarios where, you're up against the clock, and, then you got to find the best shot available, which may be a mid. But to come down and shoot a non-paint 2 off the dribble early in a shot clock, we try to avoid that at all costs, because, again, the percentages of that, if you just take it and I think the average, like for us, is around 38% on those shots. Well, that's 76 points in 100 possessions. You're going to average about 45 to 50 points a game. No one wants to see that. And so, and the threes were at 35%. So you're generating way over a point of possession when you shoot those.
Just looking at some of your other players, I know that I asked you about Ravi Avila, but also another guy from Indiana State that came over with you is Isaiah Swope. He's kind of like an unsung hero, especially with his defensive performance here.
No question. He's top 10 in the league in scoring and assists, and I'd agree. He's underratedly a great defender. I think he's as good a defender as there is in the league from a perimeter standpoint. He just doesn't do it in ways that, doesn't get a ton of steals or obviously blocks because of his size, but does a fantastic job on ball screens, guarding the other team's best player. He and Kobe Johnson, our defense has far outpaced our offense this season, particularly in league play. And those two guys have really carried the water in terms of making that happen. But Isaiah, we put a lot on his plate. He has so much more in terms of what we're asking to do than what he had to do at Indiana State in terms of playmaking, responsibility with the ball, taking on the opponent's best player. Last year he was pretty much freed up to go score. And this year, not only has he moved up a level from the Missouri Valley to the Atlantic 10, we've added exponentially more to his plate while he's moved up that level. And, the reality is to be top 10 in the league in scoring, assists, and doing it the way he's doing it. And as we mentioned with Robbie, another guy that's been massively clutch, game winner against UMass, huge 3 to pull us win 1 against Davidson, game tying 3 against George Mason. You go down the list, Isaiah, much like Robbie, wants that ball late and has that clutch gene. That's a big reason why I've been able to pull out some really tough games.
We have a question from the chat here from George, because that kind of builds into what you're looking for in players. But George asks, what are your thoughts about building a roster using the portal? What is the type of player that you're looking for?
Yeah, I don't think you want to build a roster with the portal. I mean, I think you want to fill needs in the portal. And the more we do in recruiting to bring in young players and then develop those young players, you would like it to be where your voids on your roster are filled by guys who are currently ready to take on much bigger roles in the future. So the hope would be for us that, just using this year as an example, we have 3 freshmen that are playing in Amari McCautry, Dylan Warlick, and Max Picard, that those 3 guys, however they finish this year, would have massive jumps between their freshman and sophomore years and are able to take on more responsibility. And as you bring in more guys like that, we have 3 high school kids signed for this class that we got to go through that same process with. But you want to use the portal judiciously to fill needs and to make sure that you're getting, if you have a void you don't think you can fill in-house, that you can do that through the portal. But in terms of what we look for, I think there's, tangible, intangible things. From a tangible standpoint, you always want guys that, the way we play, that process the game at a high level. You want guys that, understand how to play basketball, because we do play so conceptually based versus patterned. So if guys don't have a good feel, it's hard. You want guys that can play make, guys that can handle and pass. You want guys that are highly skilled in terms of shooting is a big thing for us, obviously. And then plus positional size, which we think gives you a chance to be versatile, not just offensively, but defensively, in terms of how often you can switch and what you can do on that end of the floor. And so those are the tangible things we're always looking for. And then, intangibly, you're trying to vet somebody's competitive character as deeply as you can. And in the portal, it's hard because it is a little bit of speed dating. The high school guys you get to know for months, get to know their families. There's sometimes it's years you spend recruiting them and you spend time getting to know them. with the portal, it's usually a matter of weeks. And you got to really be diligent about making sure that you not just get the talent part right, but you get the competitive character piece right.
Hey, Josh, we got a couple more things. Number one, how important is it for you, because of the attrition that you've experienced this year, how important is it to get that double bye?
I think it's important, of course. We control our own destiny with that. We have 3 games left, 2 against teams we're fighting with. If we went out, I think we're guaranteed to be in that double bye situation. So, that's a big goal for us, is to get it. I would say, more importantly than that, or of equal importance, is making sure that we're playing our best basketball going into Washington. I think I've said this before. I'd rather be the 6th seed and feel like, man, we're in a great space in terms of how we're playing, and guys are healthy and ready to go, and we think we're peaking, versus, man, we got the 4 seed, but we feel like we're not at full throttle going into DC. You're going to have to win games, high level games, whether it's 3 or 4, but certainly for us, with the short bench we have, 3 would be a lot more palatable than 4. But I would also say I'd rather be playing my best basketball, but we want to be selfish and do both. We want to be playing our best basketball, and we think we're going to need that. Obviously, the schedule, Loyola, Dayton, Duquesne down the stretch is about as hard as it gets. So we're going to have to play good basketball to win any of these 3 games, and never mind, all 3.
And you mentioned the short bench. What a revelation McCautry's been in the last week or so, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's been terrific. Amari, I went going back to the summer. I've said, I thought Amari and Max Bakar were our 2 most talented players. And their ability to develop, would change our ceiling as a team. And Amari, has shown it in spurts. But I said this to the media yesterday. He did something against Davidson he hasn't done all season, which is put back-to-back good performances together. And, he's had a game here, a game there. He plays great, plays poorly, typical inconsistency of young players. But for him to come in, do what he did against Rhode Island, and then to follow that up with Davidson, if Amari, does what he's capable of doing, and I have no reason to think that he's not now, kind of understands what needs to happen from a competitive standpoint, from an attention to detail standpoint, that changes our ceiling as a team, no question. Because again, you get a kid that talented, and now he's playing winning basketball. That changes the ceiling for our basketball team here down the stretch. And so that's been a huge revelation for us. And if it continues, which I expect it to, we become a much better team, because he gives us a level of talent and versatility, and does some things that nobody else on our team is capable of doing.
Last thing, you've been here 11 months now, so you've had time to kind of scan the premises, and you're in a good spot there at SLU on campus. What is Josh Schertz's go-to sandwich place at this stage of your St. Louis existence?
Man, that's a good question. Go-to sandwich place. Love the Gramophone, which is right by campus.
Oh, so good.
Gramophone's very good. By the house, we got Jersey Mike's, which, I live in Olivet, so right by the house, I got Jersey Mike's. We got a ton of that. And then in season with the players love Jimmy John's and Subway. So I'm eating a ton of that. When I get out of the season, I'm gonna be able to explore a little more in terms of these sandwich spots. But and then Balkan Treat Box, another one that's really good. That we like. So there's a few places, but I got to explore some here as we get. I'm done with. I've had my fill of Subway and Jimmy John's, I can assure you.
So Joya's Deli. There's several locations for Joya's, Giias. Joya's Deli. There's one on the hill and one in Creve Coeur. You'll love it.
I will definitely check that out. And Pickleman's, I can't give them Pickleman's. We do a bunch from there as well, right by campus. So Pickleman's and Gramophone by campus are awesome. But I will try that as soon as we're done. I will head out and give it a whirl.
Yeah, my son, he went to SLU, and I think for 4 years that's all he had was Pickleman's, whether it was pizza or sandwiches. It was unbelievable.
There's a lot of kids in our campus that probably Pickleman's is the majority of their diet, my son included. So I think Pickleman's and Cane's is what he eats, pretty much vacillates between those two.
There you go. Coach, good luck tomorrow. Thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Have a great day. Appreciate it. See you tomorrow.
You too. See you later. That is Josh Schertz, head basketball coach at SLU. He's doing a great job. And it's hard.
Great job.
Yeah. Hard to get when, they had really high hopes for Larry Hughes II.
Yeah.
They had really high hopes for Kellen Thames. And they've lost some really key parts of this team. Yet here they are at the end of the season, and it appears that they're ascending.
Because of those guys coming through, especially the ones we talked about that he brought over from Indiana State, Isaiah Swope and Robbie Avila. I mean, those guys have helped a lot. It kind of helps having those guys carry on that identity that he's trying to build at the start of this foundation with the Billikens.
Avila's a big time player.
He is. That stat that you have for LeBron, when you told me that this morning, I was absolutely shocked at that.
Unbelievable. I'll give
Because
it to
it's
you
true.
again.
I mean, the clutch gene is something that you see with a lot of different players. Like, who do you want to have in those final seconds, 5 seconds left? You need to have somebody win the game for you. Who do you want to have the ball in their hands?
Yeah. And Avila is one of those guys.
Yeah.
There was actually a commercial back in the day. I think it might have been a Nike commercial where Michael said, "I've missed 48 game-winning shots in my career," or something like that. So read that stat again Okay,
about LeBron.
LeBron James in hitting last-second shots throughout his Lakers career. According to ESPN Stats and Info, LeBron has gone 1 for 29 on go-ahead or game-tying field goals within the final 5 seconds of the fourth quarter or overtime as a member of the Lakers.
So if you had to guess, then who would be one of the best and in those situations? Do you think Kobe's up there? Do you think Michael Jordan's up there?
I think Kobe and Michael both have to be considered up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if they weren't among the all-time leaders. And, it'd be interesting to see what Steph is.
Yeah. I think that Steph could. That's a good one. Yeah. I think that's a really good one. We have our newsletter to talk about before we do a quick Grim Report.
And we want you to subscribe to the YouTube page, which you're watching right now, and like the video if you haven't already, and go to sportshubstl.com and sign up for the Hub's newsletter sent to your inbox twice a week and anytime St. Louis sports news breaks. You'll be the first to know about Sports Hub STL events and merchandise, get exclusive content and prize opportunities and more. And while you're on the site, check out all the St. Louis sports content, including game recaps, programming highlights, sports news and opinion, gambling tips, and more. It's all on the website at sportshubstl.com.
Now it's time for a quick Grim Report before we talk to Eric Sontag about some of the bets to look for this weekend. And this is a really interesting CBS article that just came out here recently. And the title is Major League Baseball's Unbreakable Records. Will anyone touch Joe DiMaggio's hitting streak, Barry Bonds' home run total? So my question for everybody today, and make sure you weigh in on the chat, like and subscribe while you're there. But what Major League Baseball records will never be broken?
Well, Cy Young's 511 wins. We're at a point now where 250, half of the number of wins that Cy Young got is going to get you into the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a chance, however, unlikely that 56 in a row could be broken. Pete Rose got to 44 back in 1978. It'd take, I think Molitor might have gotten to 38 at one point. It'd take a tremendous run, but it'd be, and the problem is when those guys were doing it, we didn't have the proliferation of relievers. You weren't seeing 4 pitchers a game. So that'll make it hard, the 56 in a row.
Well, with Cy Young too, Justin Verlander, he has 262. He's 41 years old. So he might not even get to like 270.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
It's crazy.
And nobody stopped pitching. Everybody pitched every day when Cy Young was pitching. So 511, probably the biggest one. Now that we do have testing for steroids, I think Bonds 765 is probably safe. 756, I think. 756. Not
How many do you think that he would have without the steroids?
He only had 150 home run season in his career, the year he hit 73. He'd probably be at 500-ish, I would think. Bonds, you think, Joe?
Over 500
without roids.
Oh yeah,
without the roids.
He was such a good player in Pittsburgh before he went to San Francisco.
He was a really good player, but he didn't hit. I don't think he hit for that much power, though. Let's see.
By the way, the one that will never be broken, Cal Ripken.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
that's true.
I don't know if the highest right now, I think, is maybe one of the guys on the Braves. Maybe Matt Olson.
And yeah, not even at 200, right?
I was going to say, like, even for somebody to get to 1,000 games would be remarkable.
Yeah. First 7 years of Barry's career in Pittsburgh, he hit, here we go. Hold on. I got it wrong here. 176 home runs, hit 586. And you look at once McGuire hit his 70 in 1998. Barry had had years of 42, 40, 37, 34. And then in 2000, he goes 49, 73 when he was 36 years old, 46, 45, 45. So that's 90, 136, 220. So 290 of his 762 were beyond the age of 35, and presumably when he started helping himself, allegedly.
With the helpers, allegedly.
Yeah. So
also on here, career hits, Pete Rose, 4,256.
Yeah.
The active leader in hits right now is Freddie Freeman with just 2,267.
Matt Olson currently at 620 consecutive games. Yeah. Streak started May 2nd of 2021. This, as I'm looking this up, so Cal Ripken's record, 2,632 consecutive games played. Right now, Randy, who do you think currently has the most overall games played active in MLB right now?
Ooh, who's old? Let's see. It's not Mike Trout. Let's see.
Mike Trout actually 19th on the list of current for active games played. It's not consecutive, active.
Right, just
Yeah.
active player. I'm trying to think of a good old player right now, and it's hard to think of one. I don't know. Tell me.
Andrew McCutchen.
Oh,
But his active games played is 2,127. So still five. Like that's how impressive Cal Ripken's streak was.
Incredible.
That's Andrew McCutchen has missed multiple games, has played. He's entering his 16th season in baseball, and would be 500 away right now.
Wow.
If
Yeah.
just for the games that Cal Ripken played in a row.
Yeah. Here's another one, because this is everybody in the history of the sport. Nolan Ryan has 5,714 strikeouts. He's almost 1,000 ahead of Randy Johnson. Johnson has 4,875. Ryan has 5,714. And that's with all the Walter Johnsons and Bob Gibsons and Cy Youngs and all of that. So Ryan's 57-14 also will never be broken.
no. We had a question here, or a comment more, from your mama. Okay.
Mhm.
With all the
I think
swing
it's
and
you,
miss,
Mama.
you mama, excuse me, with all the swing and miss today, no one is going to come close to a 56 game hitting streak. Talking about Joe DiMaggio's hitting
Yeah.
streak.
It's going to be very difficult. But what if they move the mound back 6 inches? And what if philosophically somebody changes? What if like Mike Schilt's philosophy starts to win over the rest of baseball? And we're getting
It's all
bat to
about
ball.
trends in baseball,
It
right?
is, yeah.
It is. It goes back to that. Career stolen bases, Ricky Henderson.
Oh, and here's a good one. Local, Bob Gibson's 1.12 ERA in 1968.
Yeah,
That'll never get beat.
no.
As a starter, no.
Yeah.
Reliever, yeah. I think you could
Right.
see a closer go on a Eric Gagne-like run
Yeah.
for that.
Right.
But I mean, Luis Ariz right now, he's in San Diego. I mean, he's playing for Mike Schill. That's won 56 games. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just a little base knock, or clear the infield once a game for 2 months.
And you look at the longest streaks in history, very few people have gotten beyond 40, even when we didn't have the proliferation of media that would descend upon somebody who got to 30.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about too with the rule changes, and we know that there's bigger bases now in baseball, and trends come and go. Kind of to your point about Mike Schilt and the philosophies changing. Going back to the career stolen bases, Ricky Henderson with 1,406, obviously a lot. Lou Brock was second with 938. Do you ever see maybe that coming close again? Just because bigger bases, philosophies can change, all the different kind of
Not
stuff.
that much.
No. I think that would be one that I would like to see somebody
would too.
get close to.
But I don't think the analytics people would ever allow that to happen, because they think that stealing a base is too much of a gamble,
Mhm.
and they only have 27 outs and they don't want to give it up.
I don't like that.
I think that you need to take more chances. Here's I just brought up how difficult it is to even get a 40-game hitting streak. In the history of the game, in more than 150 years, there have only been 6 hitting streaks of 40 or more games.
Wow.
Ty Cobb, George Sisler of the Browns in 1922 had 41. Cobb's was 40. Bill Dolan, Babe Dolan of the Cubs, 42 games in 1894. Pete Rose, I mentioned the 44-gamer in 1978. Wee Willie Keeler of the Orioles in 1896 and 97, and then DiMaggio in 41. So since the turn of the last century, we've only had 1, 2, 3, 4 hitting streaks of 40 or more games.
That's crazy.
Let's see. I mentioned that Molitor 39 gamer in 1987. Castillo. Rollins had a 38 gamer.
The Rollins one was over 2 seasons, if I believe.
Yeah, it was. That's correct. Yep. Chase Utley had a 35 gamer. I think that might have been also.
Oh, Luis Castillo. You remember that?
Yeah.
When he was with the Marlins, I thought had a decent one
too. I think you're right. Maybe he didn't get to where we think he was. Dan Ugla, surprisingly, had a 33 game hitting streak. I'm going down the list here and I'm not finding our guy.
Towards the end, I feel like Dan Ugla would have been more likely to go 33 games without getting a hit.
Right. By the way, Albert Pujols in 2003 had a 30 gamer, and I think that's the Cardinal record. Let me just double check here. I think the Cardinal record was that 30 gamer of Albert's back in 2003. No, Rogers Hornsby had a 33 gamer in 1922.
Oh.
So there you go. So now you know via podcast.
We had somebody on here, Landon Jackson, say whoever holds the record for most innings pitched in a season is probably safe with how baseball is now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, think about Gibby throwing 304.
There's no way.
Steve Carlton had incredible years where he was well over 300 innings. So, yeah, that's not – nobody will ever get to 300 again because 150 makes people happy, makes front offices happy. So, yeah, that's another great point. Carlton, his career high, 346 and a third in 1972. Yeah, so that's his 346 and a third innings. That's 2 starting pitchers now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it is interesting. I mean, especially with the rule changes, everything like that, and how people approach things with agents too, how much that has changed, and analytics with offices, front offices. That's changed a lot of those people being able to accomplish or break those records.
Yeah. Analytics has changed everything.
Every single thing.
Our buddy Eric Sontag is going to have his show coming up at noon here.
Yeah.
On Sports Hub STL. There's Eric right there joining us to get ready for his show. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
Good morning. I have another great answer to this question of an MLB record that will never be broken. Mm-hmm. It's Fernando Tatis, 2 grand slams in the same inning off the same pitcher. I could see a scenario where someone could tie it, but it will never be broken.
Never be broken. How about Steve Howe's 7 suspensions?
Oh, man. I like that one.
I like that one a lot. It was great seeing you last night, Eric. That was a great event that we had over at Hot Shots.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was great to see you guys. And I had to leave my house a little bit early. I actually left to go drive across the JB Bridge because the state of Missouri doesn't want to take my money. And I pulled off at the Columbia, Illinois exit. There's a gas station there with a strip mall. And I was parked there with about 10 other dudes all doing the same thing. We're sitting there in our car, putting bets in on our phone. So headed over to Hot Shots after that. So yeah, thanks a lot, state of Missouri. That was a nice visual reminder of how backwards this state could be sometimes.
Yeah, because just last week we were talking to you about this. We're getting excited, and July was the hoped start date for things to happen here with Missouri betting. But then, of course, we're having a setback. And so now they're just saying fall is kind of the timeline now for that to get started. Why are we dealing with this setback right now? And what does this mean as we get ready for betting here in Missouri?
I mean, I want to be careful with what I say because I don't want to start getting personal with somebody, but it really is Denny Hoskins, the Secretary of State, that is pushing this back. We know it needs to be launched by December 1st. We know that for sure. If I had to bet, I would say it's probably going to be getting launched December 1st or maybe late November. Just such a shame, especially with the Kansas City Chiefs in the state, to not have sports gambling ready to go at the start of the NFL season. Just such a missed opportunity. You're just going to have more and more people driving across the border to get their bets in.
That's a shame. All right, Eric, let's talk about some gambling here. We had the over last night. I was surprised that the over-under for the Blues and the Caps was 5.5. And granted, we had a 5-2 game, but it was 7. But I figured that would easily be a 7. How often do you find what you say is easy money? Because I looked at that game last night, and I thought that was easy money.
I don't believe there's really any such thing as easy money. I don't like when people say it's a lock of the century. Just there's so much variance in sports when it comes to one single game. So I actually like looking at a lot of futures bets where you have a long term sample size. So one of the things we're going to talk about on our show on Domesticated Gamblers today is season-long player props for the Cardinals hitters. And obviously you have a 162 game sample size that you're talking about there. And one I wanted to run past you guys, I know you were talking about Nolan Gorman at the top of the show. His over-under home runs for the season is set at 22.5 currently. Would you guys go over or under on that?
I'm still going to go over on that because
Really?
I still think that they're determined to get him 450 or 500 at bats.
Now, is that dependent on Nolan Arenado being here too?
I still think they want him to. I think the odd man out would not be Gorman. I think they want to find out. 2 years ago, they thought that he was a 40 home run guy, and he hit 27. And they still think that he can hit 35 to 40. Eric, I think he'll run into 23. I think if he gets 500 at bats, I think he'll run in accidentally to 23 home runs.
Yeah, I think I'm not betting this one because there's just so much unknown, but I do think Arenado still being here impacts Gorman more than anyone, because if Arenado was not here, Gorman would know coming into camp, okay, I'm the third baseman. He would know he has a lot of runway where if he struggles in spring, it's okay. You work through it. You're going to be fine. You're the third baseman. Now, I think it's in play. You guys were talking about it earlier. If he has a terrible spring, it would not stun me at all if he starts the season at Memphis. And then, over 22.5, very much in doubt if you're not on the big league club. So that bet is fascinating to me. The one I absolutely love, and this is one I actually was betting in Illinois last night when I was sitting in the parking lot, was Wilson Contreras over 19.5 home runs. So he has hit at least 20 homers in 4 of the last 5 full seasons. You don't count the COVID year, obviously. The only year he didn't hit at least 20 home runs was last season when he only played 84 games, and he still hit 15 homers. So you get him out from behind the plate, which is the reason why he got injured. He's going to be your first baseman, your DH. I mean, knock on wood, injuries always is a concern with these, but I think there's a very good chance that he sets a career high in at bats. And if he does this, I think he goes way over. I think 25 is a very reasonable estimate. So over 19.5 for Contreras looks super, super appetizing to me.
Now, looking at the Blues this weekend, as we mentioned, they won 3 in a row and kind of trending in the right direction, especially with scoring goals. As the Blues get ready to play the Kings this Saturday, are there some trends that you're looking at there?
Yeah, it looks like the Kings have opened up minus 115 as a favorite, Blues minus 105. And the total is set, these just came out, total set at 5.5. You can get that on DraftKings. I think the under is a good look here. The Blues are playing really, really well, which is, they're scoring a lot of goals, but they've been an under team this season, especially at Enterprise Center. The Kings have also been an under team this season. Like if you just blindly bet the under in every Blues game and every Kings game, you would be profitable. So I think that's a good look tomorrow. You got to think Bennington's going to play with Hofer last night. I just get the sense, after the Four Nations face-off, I know he's only been in one game since then. I kind of get a feeling Bennington's just kind of on one of these runs right now, where he's really tough to put pucks past. So if I had to bet something, I don't really love anything in that game, but I think the under would be the best play in Blues and Kings.
Do you play much NBA?
I don't. I get excited about it in the playoffs and I might dabble about it, but I've been gambling a long time and I've made a lot of mistakes over the years. And one of the things that I've learned is don't be betting on things that you don't know about. And I just really don't, there's so many other sports that I would like to be watching. I love the NBA and I'll watch in the playoffs, but during the regular season, I just don't think it's a good idea to start betting on something that you don't know anything about, because that just leads to degenerate season and you end up losing a bunch of money.
And I want to go back to the Cardinals when we look at the long term. And I know a lot of people like to bet over-unders for wins in the season. And the Cardinals, I thought, were 75.5. Is that right?
Yeah, it was 75.5 in one book, 77.5 in another book. So you really can, just try and shop around, get the best of the number. And I still think that over looks really good. We talked about that last week. Just winning 83 games last season, that this roster doesn't look that much different, with really just Goldie, Lynn, Gibson, and Kittredge, the only, big defections from last season. So if these young players take a step forward, another one that I was super interested in, Jordan Walker's home run total is set at 16.5. I think that looks really good for an over too. Again, health permitting on these. But I think him of all people they're just going to not mess with him, and which is kind of ironic with how much they've messed with him over the last year or two. But I think they're going to stick him in right field and say, go play, dude, and just mash away. I'm not saying he's going to get, be a stud and hit 30 and drive in 100, but over 16 and a half, he hit 16 just a couple of years ago, in about 2/3 of a season. So I'm very bullish on Walker too. Walker and Contreras would definitely like to look at the over for their home run totals.
All right, Eric, one more thing, because tomorrow it'll be March. And I know that people in the industry love March Madness, and it brings people out of the woodwork. But because it has that name Madness, how much value, how much do you get out of the NCAA tournament?
It is literally my favorite month of the year. My birthday is in March. St. Patty's Day is in March. You have the NCAA tournament. I am one of those guys. I still kind of degen out a little bit on it. I like to have something on every single game in the tournament. And usually my strategy is just fade the public, just whatever the public is betting on, take the opposite side. Now, when you do that, do not bet your normal bet size on every single game, just because there's going to be so much variance. You could really lose your ass, and then you're in a tough spot. So maybe a half unit, quarter unit, typically what you usually bet on a game. It is the best time of year for a gambler, and very exciting with Mizzou. A couple trends to look for this weekend. I think we also talked about this one last week. Mizzou in the first half is covering the spread at a ridiculous rate. They are 20-8 against the first half number, so they're probably going to be about -1.5, -2 or so in the first half tomorrow against Vandy. I really like that. And Billiken unders this season have been a cash cow as well. 20-6 to the under for the Billikens. So we don't have a line yet for either of those games, I believe. But whatever it is for the Billikens tomorrow, it's probably going to come out around 140. I would definitely lean under in that one as well.
All right, and we'll be tuned in at noon for your show, and I know you got a lot planned for us. We're looking forward to it.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, Eric Sontag with us, and of course, you can hear his show coming up at noon.
Yeah, we have a lot of games this weekend, as we were talking about. Yes, and we have a lot of games this weekend. We have to tell you about the post-game shows, because that's what's so unique and special that we do here at Sports Hub STL, is that we give you instant reaction, especially to all the games. There's a lot of games this weekend, like we were touching on with Eric.
If you want to be lazy tomorrow, you can just watch a single game all day long and then tune in to our post-game shows here on Sports Hub STL. It all starts at 3:00, so you can get all your errands run, get all your shopping done. And then at 3:00 on CBS Sports Network, you've got SLU and Loyola of Chicago.
Yeah, it'll be exciting. And then Blues and Kings. And then we have our Blues Weekly Hub show too.
Right.
Blues Hub Weekly. So that'll be exciting with Jamal Mayers.
You've got that
That's
on Sunday night
at 7:30.
Yeah. So here's the way tomorrow breaks down, kids. 3:00 St. Louis and Loyola. You've got your post-game show right after that. 5:00 Mizzou and Vanderbilt. So literally right when SLU ends, you go right into Mizzou and Vanderbilt. Mizzou and Vanderbilt ends 7:00, Blues and Kings. And then right after they end at about 9:30, 2.5 hours, City is at San Diego on Apple. So you could just literally sit down on your couch and load up on Mountain Dew and pizza and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just watch games all day long.
Yeah.
And it's not even a 2 TV day if you don't want it to be.
No. Now we have today's overarching item or thoughts to close out the show. So any questions that you have, anything that you want to ask, whether it's how you should spend your beautiful day today, we can answer that for you, or even just thoughts on the weekend, or even the Cardinals, as we were talking about with Gorman earlier, whatever you guys want to talk about. But I want to go back to that interview with Josh Schertz, because when he started going into those numbers, Randy, I'm not a numbers person. We are not numbers people whatsoever. That's why we're in this profession. But man, you could just tell like how just analytical he is, but in like a good way, I think is the best way to put it.
And he's exactly right. If you take a 15-foot jumper and hit 50%, that's pretty good. But hit 38% from 3 and you've got the same thing or a little bit better. So you might as well, with the line being 19.9 or whatever it is, you might as well be shooting threes. There really isn't a good reason to be shooting 15 or 17-foot jumpers now. Either if you're going to have a 2-pointer, have it be a layup right at the rim. And if you're going to have another shot, have it be a 3-pointer.
Exactly. And we have the Cardinals too back performing today. And I know that we talked about this earlier, but Donovan over at second, just kind of something to watch for. I mean, I think that's good. That's the Cardinals actually prepping for if Arenado is moved at any point, at least during spring training games when this doesn't matter, you're getting those guys reps.
That's really important. And I think it's more important because Donovan's played a lot of second over the last few years.
Mhm.
Gorman has hardly played third at all. I think it's more important to get Gorman his reps, if possible, over at third. But Donovan, you're infield on opening day by all accounts, or soon after opening day. When, not if, when you trade Arenado, your infield is going to be Gorman, Wynn, Donovan, Contreras.
And looking at your pitching staff yesterday too, once again, just spring training, so not putting too much weight into this, but Palante wasn't exactly perfect for him. But something of note, Matthew Liberatore, he retired all 6 of the hitters that he faced, and he's now like a perfect 12 of 12 in 2 of his appearances this spring. I would really like him to be in the bullpen as kind of like a long relief guy.
I like that, but I think I want to give him a shot as a starter. And
he could be a surprise guy. I feel like he's not getting talked about in that conversation of this is just my perception, and you can tell me if I'm wrong with this. It seems like the order of who's going to get that possible spot, because as of right now, everybody's kind of there with Steven Matz here, and nobody's injured as of yet, knock on wood. But it seems like it's McGreevy, Matthews, and then Liberatore, or maybe in their eyes, it's McGreevy, Liberatore, then Matthews.
I would think that it'd be Liberatore. And I think that they'll, maybe even during spring training, they'll determine that Matthews is ahead of Liberatore as a possible starting pitcher.
I can see that.
And he's got to get up here. He's 24. He's pitched 4 years at Stanford. He's got to get up here and pitch soon. By the way, I had somebody put together a side-by-side of Quinn Matthews and Chris Sale. It's unbelievable. Their deliveries are identical.
When you showed me that, literally identical. I wish we could pull it up, but when we were looking at it earlier, we don't have that video, do we?
No.
Oh, okay. But when you were showing me earlier, it looked identical.
Yeah, it looks like the same picture.
Literally.
So here's another overarching thing. And it's absolutely remarkable to me that the National Football League can get people to run really fast for 40 yards in shorts and get people to tune in and be enthralled by it. But the NFL, and I know that they took our team away, but they were able to do it because they're geniuses. And they are in the news 24/7, 365. They finished their Super Bowl two weeks ago, right? They're doing their combine now, and they're all over the news. 2 weeks after that, we're going to be into free agency in the NFL, and we're going to be talking about that.
They have it set up so well.
They do. And then they'll go into OTAs, and then they'll do the draft, and then they'll do more OTAs. The only time they're really off in the NFL is in late June to July, about late June to mid-July. There's about 3 weeks where you don't have a ton of NFL news.
No. And then even then, it seems like something always happens anyways. There's rumors. There's something dramatic happening. They embrace the drama in the NFL. That's what's making them so successful. And the NFL Combine, like you're talking about, who really cares about what happens there? But there's always something interesting that happens in the Combine.
And people are actually watching those guys jump as high as they can.
Yeah.
Like you're ever going to do that in an NFL game without pads on.
Yeah. And speaking of interesting stories, just another kind of tidbit as we go into the weekend. I don't know if you've been following everything with Matthew Stafford and the Rams and the Raiders. I don't know. It seems like we could get like more kind of there's reports that Stafford and the Rams are meeting today. So we could get some more clarification about what's going to happen with that here soon.
And apparently Stan Kroenke doesn't want to pay him the cash to give him $50 million a year. And that's what Stafford wants to get because Dak Prescott's getting 60. Stafford just wants to be paid commensurate with some of the mid-level guys. You have 32 quarterbacks in the league. He wants to be paid in that group that's between 8 and 15.
Yeah.
And apparently Stan Kroenke is reluctant to provide they've got the cap room, but he doesn't want to pay the cash for the quarterback.
Yeah. Are you surprised?
I'm not surprised.
Your favorite.
My favorite.
That you have nightmares about.
It's not nightmares. No, it's happy. And it was interesting that the NFL, because there had been so much talk about the possibility of the Raiders tampering with Matthew Stafford. So Pro Football Talk sent an email to Brian McCarthy, the NFL's lead PR guy, and said, "Hey, is this tampering?" And the league got back to Pro Football Talk, and he said, not getting into when, where, how, or if there was a meeting between Brady and Stafford. But there's no issue here as the club gave permission to Stafford to seek a trade. So he can talk to anybody he wants.
It's still weird to me getting used to Tom Brady as the broadcaster and now Raiders owner, like an NFL owner.
Yeah. And I wonder how the GM feels.
I know.
You know, and I guess he's doing him a favor. I guess they
Yeah.
all want to get Matthew Stafford, and I don't even remember who they hired as their GM, so it doesn't. Players wouldn't know that either. So if you have Tom Brady able to make phone calls for your
That carries
team,
weight.
it carries a lot of weight.
Yeah. It'll be a fun weekend. It will be.
It'll be awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So a lot of sports tomorrow. I've got another trivia night tomorrow.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
What
I
was
think
this
it's
one?
Angels Wings in St. Charles. It'll be fun.
Nice.
Looking forward to that. And otherwise, I'm just going to chill. And the
Same.
weather, let's check
The
tomorrow's
weather is
show.
perfect.
It's going to cool off tomorrow.
It's going to, yeah. But I'm saying for at least this time of year, it's nice outside.
Yeah, we can live with this.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So it's 64 right now.
69 today, and then in the 40s tomorrow and Sunday.
That's not bad, but
then
still sunny.
55, but raining on Tuesday.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, they might have really bad storms next Tuesday. So now you know.
Via radio
Via
or
radio.
podcasting.
What do you got going on, Joseph? You got a lot of post-game shows this weekend, right?
A lot of a lot of post game shows that I don't think I'm on any.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I will be doing Cards Hub 365 tomorrow, so that's the only thing that I think I am scheduled to be on. But
Good.
as the maker of the schedule, I think I should know that.
Yeah, right. And we have Cards Up 365 this afternoon after the Cardinals in Houston.
Yes, Ryan Fagan and I tomorrow. Brendan Schaefer and I on Saturday. Ethan Hannaford and co-host TBD on Sunday.
Okay.
For the weekend for Cardinal coverage.
Good deal.
Nice.
Yep. All right. We've got it rolling here at Sports Hub STL, and we thank you for tuning in, being a part of the show. And we always love your comments, which are there on the YouTube chat line. And we'll start another week on Monday.
Yep. Sounds good.
That's Brooke. I'm Randy. Have a great weekend, everybody.